The one thing that began to happen to me a lot was all of my friends started calling me a racist. And I'm like, I'm not a racist. I mean, I just spent 22 years in the Air Force, worked with everyone of every color in all situations. And the only thing I really cared about was you do your job, I'll do mine, and we'll get the mission done. That was my main concern.
Right.
And so anyway, they began calling me names, and racist was one of them. And it's a pretty nasty, disgusting thing to be called. Being called a racist is a horrible thing. And I mean, if you are a racist, okay, I get it. But if you haven't really said anything or done anything that would paint you as a racist, it's just assumed you're a racist. I've grown thick skin over it, but I mean, it does bother me.
Welcome to Sheila's Take, your go-to podcast for thoughtful insights on love, faith, health, fitness, relationships, and navigating today's challenges through a spiritual perspective. Join me, Sheila Dunbar, as we explore various aspects of life with a mindful and godly approach. Tune in for engaging discussions on all things meaningful and transformative. Welcome to another captivating episode of Sheila's Take. I am thrilled to introduce my incredible guest today, Dr. George S. Maurer, growing up in Toms River, New Jersey, and now residing in California. Dr. Maurer brings a wealth of experience. He is a retired Air Force Master Sergeant who bravely served his country, including a deployment to Iraq during the global war on terrorism. With over 35 years as an award-winning broadcast journalist, he has interviewed an array of high-profile guests like Sammy Hagar, Pat Benatar, one of my favorites, Dan Aykroyd, Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, and Robin Zander, just to name a few. He has also conducted thought-provoking interviews with Secretary of Defense Robert Gates and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Admiral Michael Mullen. Dr. Maurer holds a Doctor of Education from Liberty University, where his capstone project dived into critical race theory. Outside his professional achievements, he enjoys RV travel with his fiancée, indulging in his love for pizza. I hope it's New York pizza, cheesesteak, sub sandwiches, and rooting for his beloved New York Giants. Plus, he delights in exploring California's rich wine culture. So welcome me in introducing Dr. George S. Maurer. You are in for a treat. Welcome, Dr. George. How are you?
Well, I'm doing well, Sheila. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this.
You are so welcome. And I forgot you also covered the 2 Major League Baseball All-Star games and a Super Bowl, right?
I did. And one of the All-Star games was in Yankee Stadium, the last year that it was there. And then the Super Bowl 42 was when old dopey Eli Manning, when he was still only 4 years in the league, beat the 18-0 undefeated, destined to be the greatest team in the NFL, New England Patriots.
Oh,
And they
yeah.
beat them 17-14. And I can hardly describe what a game that was, and being there in person. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I'm a New Yorker also. I was born and raised. I've since moved from there, but I am a New Yorker. So I totally know what you mean. That's why I mentioned I hope it's New York pizza because New York pizza's the
Yeah,
best.
it is. It was always a long time ago. I mean, I left Toms River in 1983 and joined the Air Force in 1987. And getting good pizza outside of Jersey, New York was tough.
Yeah.
It's not like that anymore. Like I said, I live here in Southern California. I got a place about 15 minutes away from my house, makes pizza almost as good
Almost as
as
good.
the pizza I eat on the boardwalk in Seaside Heights. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So
Well,
it's legit. It's
I'm
legit.
I'm gonna believe that because you would know. So I'm gonna
I
take that
know
as
what
your
I'm talking
word.
about.
So,
Absolutely.
and I know you since you talked about joining the Air Force. What inspired you to join the Air Force, and like how did your military service help shape your life and your career?
Well, first out of high school, I went to a junior college in Massachusetts
Hmm.
and graduated, and then I transferred to Loyola University in New Orleans. And New Orleans is a bad place to go to school for a young man with a party attitude and a lack of discipline.
I bet that's the party town. Come on.
It's a big party town. And so I soon found myself working more and going to school not at all.
Hmm.
And and I looked around and I said, I'm kind of on a bad path here. I need something to jumpstart my life, kind of get it back on track. And so I decided to join the Air Force, and I
Hmm.
did. And in 1987, I did, um, and it gave me the discipline to begin behaving like a grown up.
Okay.
I never thought I would go for a whole 20 years and retire, but every time the enlistment was up, I'd look around and going, I got it pretty good here, and so yeah, let's do another tour and we'll see how it goes. And then I got to a certain point. It's like, well, I think 12 or 13 years in. I'm like, it's another 7 years to retire, get a check for the
Just
rest of my
yeah,
life, get
yeah.
health care for the rest of my life. I might as well just go. And I did. And I just had some wonderful experiences. It was really, again, it gave me the structure that I needed to get my life on track.
Now, during your service, you were also deployed to Iraq, right?
I was.
Can you describe
Yes.
some of the experiences during your deployment that have had a lasting impact on you?
Yeah. Well, I did a couple of overseas tours.
Mhm.
And one of my times overseas was in Iraq. And you know, going overseas to a place like Iraq is an appreciation course in America.
Yeah.
A lot of us forget just how good we have it here.
Mhm.
And when you go to a place like Iraq where you have people, they're just living in abandoned buildings and there's just nowhere else to go and they have no food, they have no water.
Mhm.
And I did a news story about this and where they sent Christmas presents from Japan where I was stationed over to Iraq and we handed them out a little bit helping the chaplain do it.
Mhm.
And I mean, it just makes you so grateful for everything we have and how lucky we really
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
when you say people living in those kinds of conditions. And so I hope the best for the folks in Iraq. I hope things have improved for them.
Mhm.
Um, I got to do things. I choppered all over that country. I did a couple of stories. Got to ride in what's called a striker. It's basically an eight-wheeled tank sort of thing, up armored vehicle as they call it. And got to sleep in Saddam's palaces.
Wow.
Slept in his son's palace, and you're not supposed to do this, with all the smoking policies these days. But in the top room, which was supposed to be, I think, Uday or Qusay Hussein, those were his sons,
Mhm.
Uday and Qusay. I was in one of their palaces, and I think it was their master bedroom, which was the guest room. And so they had this huge hot tub, and I filled that thing all the way up to the top. I was alone in the whole, and no one there but me.
In the whole
And
palace or in the room?
on like the third floor,
Oh, okay.
and so
Wow.
like the third, it was all mine.
Mhm.
And it was a nice guest room, probably not the master bedroom, but I had just purchased some cigars down at the thing, so I got into the hot tub, nice hot water, and I lit myself a cigar. And I enjoyed my cigar, even though it was a no smoking area
Yeah,
and all
yeah.
that. But yeah, yeah, we got to have a little fun when I was there. When you break little rules like that, it kind of adds to the fun. I hate to say it that way, but
Yeah, yeah,
when you're a little naughty a little bit, sometimes makes things a little bit more fun.
yeah.
So it was
Oh,
definitely an experience, and I'm very grateful I got a chance to do it.
oh. You now, what? Because I have another question, but I want to ask this first. What drew you to the field of broadcasting, and how did you get your
Well,
start?
I actually got my start in college.
Mm,
The first school I went to was Dean College in Franklin, Massachusetts. It was a 2-year school at the time, but they had a radio station.
mhm.
And I was looking at a couple of different majors, and a friend of mine had talked about going into radio and TV, and he never quite made it. But I was like, that might be a cool thing to do.
Right, right.
So I majored in radio and television, and they had a radio station. So I had to do a work study to help pay for school and volunteer. Well, not volunteering, doing work study at the radio station was one of the ways that they did it. And they didn't really have very much of a training program. They said, okay, your next shift is from 1 to 3 or 1 to 4. And so I showed up a little bit before 1 o'clock, and the guy goes, okay, you push this button to turn that turntable, that one for that. This is to turn the mic on. This is to turn this on. And good luck. I'll see you later. I was like, okay. And no playlist, no nothing. I
You
just
winged it.
went for it. And
Yeah.
the first time I opened that microphone, I was probably more scared than I was ever in my entire life. And but we survived. We got through, and
Yeah.
so it was fun. And then when I joined the military, that happened to be a career that I could pick, so I picked it. And then you have a tryout,
Mhm.
and so I read this script that they have. I read it. They approved me, and the next thing you know, I was off to what they call DINFOS, the Defense Information School. And so I went to Defense Information School, and they have tech training, much better training program than Dean College had, that's for
Then
sure.
just pressing a button,
Um,
huh?
yeah, it was more than just pressing the buttons, that's for sure. And so anyway, and 30 odd years later, here I am,
Do you feel that your military background helped you to interview top level defense officials?
without question.
Yeah, yeah.
Without question. And just things like promoting this book,
Mhm.
being a broadcaster has helped. When I go to, like, you go to all-star games and you go to Super Bowls and you go to things like that, part of what you do is you go and you collect shout outs from famous
Mhm.
people you've watched in movies your entire life, interviewing people like Dan Aykroyd and Sammy Hagar and Kiss and, all these people. And if you're not used to it, it's intimidating. And
Yeah, yeah.
so when I went to, like, Freedom Fest in Las Vegas, there were some very famous social media influencers there, and I knew who they were, and I was able to walk right up to them and give them my elevator speech about my
Mhm.
book, and I would have been it would have been very difficult without all of my experience in the military. But since I've been doing it for so long, I find it rather simple now. And all you can do is do your best. And
Right.
if they say yes, great. But if they say no, that's okay too. But at least you took a shot. If
Right.
you never, if you don't take a shot, you never make any. You never make any shots you don't take. But at least if you take them,
Mhm.
there's a chance you're going to get it. So
I mean, you can hear as many no's, but it just takes that one yes, right?
definitely. And I just wrote, and I approached one man. His name was his last name is Coleman, Mr. Coleman, and he is the senior editor for something called Wrong Speak Publishing.
Mhm.
And they've got a fairly good following, but sometimes there are influential news organizations who tune in to the people who post articles on their website. And if I had just sent him the article blind, he probably never would have taken a second look at it. But
Mhm.
since I was at this thing, I got a chance to look him in the eye, talk to him a little bit, and he said, "Tell you what, here's how you submit, an op-ed. I'll let my editors know to expect it," and it published about a week later. And so, I mean, that's what face to face
Yeah.
things can do for you. When you just send things blind out of the internet, they don't know who you are.
Right,
But if
right.
they get to see you and talk to you, it's a whole different ballgame.
I know you've seen that journalism has evolved significantly over the past few decades, right?
It
I'm
certainly
not even going to
has.
say
Yeah.
years, the decade. How have you seen the field change, or what challenges do you overcome as being a broadcast journalist?
Well, I can say that they seem to be less honest than they were a long time ago. Unless maybe they were being less honest back then, but I just never
Mm-hmm.
noticed. And when I was in the Pentagon for my last assignment, um, there was a bomb, and I forget the exact number. It was like a GPU 48,
Mm-hmm.
43, something like that. And what this bomb is designed to do is penetrate the earth by like a mile before it explodes. And I guess that happened to be about the depth that the Iranian nuclear facilities were located. Their plutonium and
Mm-hmm.
uranium um, enrichment facilities. And so when you go to something called the gaggle, where all of the press, they ask questions of a senior leader. And I happened to be at this particular meeting, and they were saying, "Hey, is this thing designed to kill Iran's nuclear and
Mm-hmm.
plutonium, uranium enrichment facilities?" He's like, "Nope." And they asked a question like 10 times, and each time he said, "This is not what this bomb is designed. We did not create this to do that." And every single headline that came out of those reporters who were in that room said things like GPU 48 designed to kill
Wow, wow,
enrichment
wow. Yeah.
facilities, and so I just and then of course I'm a bit of a student of the media anyway, and one of
Mhm.
the things that I do for my book is I have a Facebook page, same title, Critical Race Theory in Your School: How to Fight Back by Dr. George Maurer. And if you happen to go out there, one of the things that I do in the mornings is I go find news stories about critical race theory so that
Mhm.
anyone who is interested in that subject can keep up on it, because it's a difficult subject to,
Yeah.
first of all, understand, and it's a difficult subject to stay on top of. And so I put all of these news articles in one place. And a lot of the news stories I'm reading are just they're just dishonest. There's just no other way to say it. They are
Really?
just dishonest. And the reporter, when you can see the agenda of the reporter in the writing, that is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Unless it's an op-ed. If it's an op-ed, that's one thing. You have an opinion and you're sharing it. But if it's just supposed to be a straight news story,
Mhm.
and you can see it from a mile away where this guy's coming from,
Right,
or
right.
or lady, that's a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your book and your capstone project. Um, dived into critical race theory. Tell us a little
Yes.
bit more about your research and what motivated you to explore this subject.
Well, one of the things that made me go into this in the first place was when I retired from the Air Force in 2010. I had been on Facebook before, but I was fairly neutral
Mhm.
in my political uh, uh, comments, let's say.
Mhm.
And once I retired and once I was out of uniform, I felt a little freer to express my personal opinions. So I came out as a conservative to a lot of my Facebook friends, and working for the government. A lot of my Facebook friends were very liberal. And so, okay, opposite points of view, that's fine.
Right, 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 right.
Um, but the one thing that began to happen to me a lot was all of my friends started calling me a racist. And I'm like, I'm not a racist. I mean, I just spent 22 years in the Air Force,
Mhm.
worked with everyone of every color in all situations. And the only thing I really cared about was you do your job, I'll do mine, and we'll get the
Mhm.
mission done. That was my main concern.
Right.
Um, and so anyway, they began calling me names, and racist was one of them. And it's a pretty nasty, disgusting thing to be called. Being called a racist is a horrible thing. And I mean, if you are a racist, okay, I get it. But if you haven't really said anything or done anything
Yeah.
that would paint you as a racist, it's just assumed you're a racist. So anyway, that's always kind of been there a little bit. I've grown thick skin over it, but I mean, it does bother me. I mean, it
So
just
you're
does.
I don't want to interrupt you, but you're saying because of certain views that you have, they just automatically assumed you were a racist.
Correct.
Mhm.
Because I didn't, for example, I was a supporter of George Bush because he was a Republican. I did
Mhm.
not support Barack Obama because he was a Democrat, and I
Mhm.
didn't agree with his policies.
Mhm.
However, I was actually an announcer on the path for the parade, for his inauguration parade.
Mhm.
I was happy to do that. It was still the president of the United States, and to become an announcer on a presidential parade route like that's a once in a
Right.
lifetime thing. So he took it.
Right.
I didn't care that he was a Democrat, but again, I did not support his policies, so
Mhm.
I was a racist. But anyway, when it came
Right.
time to go for my doctoral degree, I knew I needed a subject that was going to keep my attention because it was going to be a couple of year process.
Mhm.
And something called critical race theory was popping around that time. And I was like, huh, okay, this looks interesting. I think this will probably keep my interest long enough for me to get this finished. And you know what? Maybe I can turn it into a book after I'm
Right.
done. And that's exactly what happened. And again, here we are today.
So let's talk about your book. Let's go into a little bit about it. I haven't been able to read it, and I apologize for that. And I will definitely
That's
read it
okay.
once we're done. But let's talk about it a little bit. Explain going into it and just a little bit about the book.
Sure. Well, I'm not someone who believes in cute titles. I
Hmm.
like very clear titles.
Right.
So I called my book Critical Race Theory in Your School: How to Fight Back. And I wrote it because I was seeing, as I was doing research for my capstone project, I was seeing um, parents who were concerned about critical race theory, but they were confused because the research that they were doing was conflicting. Some things said critical race theory was working to end racism in America. Other things said critical race theory was inflaming race
Hmm.
relations in America. And so parents didn't know what to do. They didn't. So I went in there and I kind of gathered it all together. And I made it for them a resource for not only learning what critical race theory is, but also I give them advice throughout the book on what to do if they find critical race theory in their
Hmm.
children's school. And to basically give a real quick explanation of critical race theory, there are ethnic studies and there is critical race theory, and they are two different things. Ethnic studies is the healthy, positive learning of one's culture, leading to self awareness, self confidence, all the
Hmm.
things one needs to be successful in life.
Right.
Critical race theory, on the other hand, is a very tight focus on only the worst moments in our history without giving due credit to all of the progress that we've made.
Hmm.
And we've come a long way over the last 70, 60 years or so. I mean, in 1955, a man by the name of Emmett Till, and I mentioned this in my book, in
Hmm.
Mississippi, African American, was murdered for flirting with a white woman
Right.
in the street. Okay. Your average
And well,
critical race.
let me just say this too.
Okay.
He was a young boy. He wasn't even a man. He
He
was
was
14 years.
14 years
Was
old.
he
You're
13?
right.
I thought he was
You're right.
14. Yes.
I thought he was, yeah, 14 years
Hmm.
old. Exactly.
Yes.
You're right. You're right. I should have mentioned that. He was a child.
Hmm.
He was a baby. And but your average critical race theorist believes that that sort of thing can happen again at any moment. Um, and I mean, you can't put anything, I mean, anything is possible, but we do not live in that world anymore. We just don't. You have Ruby Bridges. of course, who went to
Mhm.
school in New Orleans,
Mhm.
desegregation,
Mhm.
Brown versus Board of Education and all that. And she was a very brave young lady, and she was surrounded by white people screaming horrible things at her. She was a
Mhm.
little girl. She was a
Yeah.
baby, you
Yeah.
know? And I mean, the white kids, most of them didn't go to school after she arrived, and it's just not like that anymore here. And I'm not saying we don't have racism in America
Yeah.
because we do. Of
Mhm.
course we do. We have a long way to go. Of course we do. But we have come a long, long way. And and that's the thing about critical race theorists is they don't give credit to how far we've come. But beyond that, uh, they also inflame things. They make it worse. For example, one parent sent a picture of a lesson from his child's kindergarten class, and the lesson title was Freedom. And the children were supposed to explore 6 sentences.
Mhm.
And those 6 sentences were: whites have more than blacks, whites harass blacks, whites oppress people of color, you must fight in a war, and what was the other one? Aggressive body language. So I don't know many adults who could go into a room and discuss those sentences without getting emotional.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now you put 5 and 6-year-old children into that room and just imagine what it's going to do to them. But for me, the biggest crime is this. Again, we have this ethnic studies. When in Stanford University research, Harvard University research, a number of researchers out there uh, say that when a, an at-risk student of color, and we'll just for the argument's sake, let's say an African American young man, maybe he's living in a tough city, maybe his parents are in survival mode, maybe he lives in a one-parent home, maybe he's just living in difficult circumstances.
Mhm.
And here is this ethnic studies program that teaches him about his culture, teaches him about his history, and suddenly he's taking pride in himself a little bit. They attend school more, they get better grades, they do less of the bad things that will get them in trouble. For example, getting a young lady pregnant while they're still in high school, they're
Mhm.
more likely to graduate high school. Okay. All of these things could lead to a successful life if given the opportunity to attend a positive ethnic studies program. But the problem is, a lot of our ethnic studies programs around the country have been hijacked by critical race theorists who, instead of teaching them, look at this person who did wonderful things 100 years ago, despite all of the challenges of Jim Crow and et cetera, et cetera. He overcame or she overcame, and they were a great person. Instead, they're taught they have no chance. American society is designed to keep them down, and they will never amount to anything because of systemic racism or white oppression or marginalization. Society treats you differently because you're black. You won't get it. You may want to go to that school, but you won't be able to because you're the wrong color. You're the wrong this, you're the wrong that. And what
But you don't think
happens?
that's true? The thing is that I I personally, growing up,
Mhm,
I went to school, I lived in Brooklyn, New York,
right,
and my brothers and I were bused to school out in Queens, Glendale, Queens at the time.
okay,
Middle Village, Queens, it was called.
okay,
Um, I don't remember too much about the racism or the issues we dealt with in what we would call elementary school, but when we went to what we call junior high school during my time, they call middle school now,
yeah,
we experienced a lot of racism. And it
Yeah.
wasn't, it was from the students, it was not much from the teachers, but it was even from the parents. And
Yeah.
I know you said that there's a time where kids are being taught that this things that happened in the past. But when you look at people like um Tamar Rice, a young boy who was murdered, and this is still happening. So how can you say that this is something that can't really happen or is not
Sure.
too much to happen when they see it? And I'm asking you that, how do you change their outlook on that when they're seeing it in the news constantly and they're hearing
Right.
it on the radio and they're living these lives, and it's hard for them to come out of their circumstances. How do you change the mindset if this is what they're seeing, but yet in school they're taught this with ethic studies?
Right. Well, first of all, what you were talking about was more personal racism. And obviously, it was disgusting
Mhm,
and inappropriate behavior by children. Okay. But that's the key. It's a behavior by children. But what critical race theorists are going to tell you is that the school, the college that you may want to apply to is racist in its policies. So it may accept you because of, but it might not. And
mhm,
if it doesn't, it's because you're black or you're African American or you're Hispanic or you're Asian,
mhm.
whatever the case may be. And and again, I'm not saying that there aren't difficult circumstances in America, and you know, we all face elements where people are mean to us
Right.
or even racist. I mean, I was down with, we're talking about RVing. I was RVing with my fiance down in San Diego, and I was having a hard time finding this one place we were supposed to go to. And I pulled over and, and I leaned out to the gentleman on the street and I said, "Excuse me, do you know where?" And he turned around and he looked at me, saw that I was white, of course, and goes, "Oh, no speaking English, no speaking English." I mean,
Yeah.
nobody's immune from this stuff. It
Mhm,
happens, and just because that guy was a jerk
mhm.
doesn't mean our whole entire society is a we're bad people.
Right, right.
And being overseas, go to Asia, the Middle East, Japan, Korea. Boy, those guys are racist. I mean, Japan has a word for anybody who's not Japan. It's called gaijin. When I went to go get a phone bill one time because I lost it, and I went and I said, "Hey, I lost my phone bill," and I kind of got the thousand eye stare. And, that was not on her. You lost your phone bill. That's not on the checklist. So she had to call and find out what was going on. And blah 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 gaijing, blah 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 gaijing, blah 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 gaijing. I'm like, what does it have to do? Why do you have to tell this person on the other end of the phone 15 times that I'm gaijing to
Yeah.
get another phone bill? The most advanced society in the world, they had to go home. They had to mail it to me 3 days later. They couldn't just
Wow.
print one out and give it to me or just take my money right there. Um, so I, I can't, again, I'm not trying to say there isn't racism in America and
Mhm.
there aren't difficult circumstances because there absolutely are. A lot of times as students, but you know what? Sometimes the biggest bully in the classrooms are the teachers. They're the teachers. And people like that, oh boy, and when I read about stuff like that, it just gets on my last nerve.
Mhm.
But anyway, the point I was trying to make is when you have an adult telling a young child of color who's at risk that he has no shot or she has
Yeah.
no shot, what you're stealing from that child is hope. You
Absolutely.
steal hope from that child. What else do they have? Nothing. And now instead of maybe working toward getting an A in math and coming to school, maybe they start not coming to school. Maybe
Yeah.
they start getting involved with some folks that they shouldn't be involved with,
Yeah.
and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So,
And no, I do believe that the teachers have a responsibility, and you can have teachers who will take that away from you. You know, you can have the most supportive parent in the world, but when you go to school and you have that teacher that says, "Oh, you're not going to make it. Just don't even bother. You're not going to,"
Yeah.
that that takes it away from you. That does take the hope away from a child. I totally agree with that. Um, what advice would you offer to aspiring journalists and those who are considering a career in the military, especially
Well,
now?
um, well, as far as the military is concerned, I know for me, it was probably one of the best decisions I ever made in my adult life. It
Mhm,
worked out very well for me. And even if you don't intend to go for a full 20 years, I've spoken to a number of people who were very successful who started life doing a hitch or two in the military.
mhm,
And
yeah,
it gives you the discipline, it gives you the structure that a lot of young folks need to kind of get their act together. And I mean, that's exactly what happened to me.
yeah,
And as far as becoming a journalist, um, that is a very difficult career. First of all, if you're a broadcast journalist, radio and television is a very demanding career field.
yeah,
Everybody thinks all you do is just sit in front of oh, this is awesome. I'm famous and making a lot of money. But you know what? I mean, everybody, "Oh, you should have a podcast." No, I don't want a podcast because
yeah,
I know the work that goes into one of
mhm,
these things,
yeah.
okay? You know what I like most about doing these things right now? I'm the guest. I show up on time. When the interview is over, I go back to whatever I was doing, and I don't have to worry about it again until you send me an email and say, "Hey, it's posted. Awesome." That's it. That's the only thing
Yeah,
I have to
yeah,
do, you
yeah,
know? But if I'm in your position, this might be a 30-minute or 45-minute podcast, but sometimes we're talking hours of work
yeah,
to
mhm,
make it right, you know?
exactly.
And so if you're going to go into that career field, be prepared to work, be prepared to be working when everybody else is off. Somebody has to work on Christmas, somebody has to work on New Year's Eve, somebody has to work on Sundays.
Mhm,
And so be prepared for that. Be prepared to take alternate holidays. I'm working on Thanksgiving, so hey kids, why don't we cook a turkey on Friday instead or Wednesday?
mhm,
Did
yeah,
a lot of that over the years, a lot of that over the
mhm,
years.
wow.
But also maintain your integrity. I see so many journalists who there's no way they don't know what they're saying is false, but they're saying it anyway. Maintain your integrity. And you know what? You might get promoted, you might get congratulated.
Mhm,
But you know what? That kind of behavior always comes with a price, always. And it will catch up to you. As a Christian, I believe that Jesus has forgiven me for my sins, but that doesn't mean there aren't consequences for
right,
bad behavior.
mhm,
I can be a Christian, but if I murder somebody, I still may end up in an electric chair someday. The judge isn't
mhm,
going to forgive me for it. Jesus may have, but the judge is going to go, sorry, dude.
yeah,
Yeah, electric chair. Boom, boom. That's it. So, again, karma is real. If you want to call it that, it is real. It will catch up to you. So
mhm, yeah.
maintain your integrity. Very important.
Looking back, what are some key lessons you've learned from your diverse professional journey that you still carry with you today?
Well, I think I mentioned one of them, integrity.
Mhm,
That's
yeah,
one of the things that a lot of the military, all of the military services, they all have their code of conduct and integrity first for the Air Force, excellence in all we do, service before self. Those are the code words that we live by. But my time in my adult life has just do your best, take a shot, even if it's a long shot, take
mhm,
it.
yeah.
You never know. They might say yes. You just never know. And I've had a few people say yes that I thought never would. I never thought I would get to interview Pat Benatar, but she said yes. I never
She's
thought I
one of
would
my
get to.
favorites, I love her.
Yeah, she's coming around again. I got tickets to go see her in like a couple of weeks
Really?
out here in
Oh,
California.
yeah,
She's
yeah.
out there. So, but it was really neat talking to them, and if you want, I can give you a link to where you can find my program if you're interested.
Definitely.
Um, if you
Definitely.
would like to listen to it, she was a lot of fun to interview, and that was a good one. But I mean, you just if I hadn't have asked, oh, there's
Mhm.
no way she'll do it, but she did.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, Dan Aykroyd, there's no way, but he did. Kiss, there's no way, but they did. You know, Robert Plant, I've been asking him a million times. He always says no. He
Robert
hasn't said
Plant,
yes.
really?
Yeah, he
Wow.
hasn't said yes, but but that's okay.
You'll
I've
get him.
asked him probably I like 6 times, and his manager knows me by name by now, and
Mhm.
and he's like, no, still the same as last time, and so
Wow.
that's okay. That's okay. I'm coming back a year from now.
You
So
get him.
anyway,
You get him.
even if I don't, I tried.
Well,
If
go ahead.
just try. Yeah.
I'm gonna put that in the atmosphere that you're gonna get him. What are you grateful for?
Oh boy. Um, everything. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all of the things that have gone well in my life.
Mhm.
My children. I haven't had the greatest track record when it comes to women, but even in those failures, I learned things.
Right.
I always hate to admit this, but I'm in the middle of my third divorce right now.
Mhm.
But
It happens.
I met a very nice lady, a
Mhm.
very lovely woman, very kind, and we're getting along great. And I think she might be the one. I do, but I mean, she's just someone who has just been very kind to me and very, very giving
Yeah.
in a way that I just really appreciate. And um, I've had some remarkable experiences, and I've got some great friends, and I had the opportunity to write this book and to share my opinions about these things, and I'm very passionate about this subject. I just we are a nation that of different colors and creeds, and we're better when we're together.
Right.
And it offends me and it hurts my feelings when I see folks trying to divide us and to
Mhm.
do things that make it worse. And the critical race theory outlook is we'll introduce negative tension in between children of different races,
Mhm.
and somehow we'll have a positive outcome. And it's just, and I see what it does in my research. I saw what it did to these children. They get depressed and they get sad. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to try to help and to try to stand up against this, against something that I feel passionate about, and to make it better
Mhm.
and to help people who have become victims of this thing. So I'm just grateful for so much. I can't even begin. And that is the key to a happy life. I'm glad you asked me that question, because being grateful is the key to a happy life. I
Yeah,
completely agree with
it
that.
definitely
Yeah,
is. How can my listeners, if they want to get your book, get in touch with you, can you give us your information? Also, give us the name of your book again.
sure. Well, my
Mhm.
book is titled Critical Race Theory in Your School: How to
Mhm.
Fight Back. And again, I don't like cute titles. I like putting it right out there. And so I also created a Facebook page called Critical Race Theory in Your School: How to Fight Back by Dr.
Mhm.
George Maurer. And on that Facebook page, I will post links to interviews like this one. I post daily news updates. Hey, South Carolina just ended a 2 week advanced placement African studies course. It was a 2 year trial program and they ended it, but they didn't really say why. And then it's okay, well, it's pending legislation. And why? And the
Mhm.
legislation was there was anti CRT legislation coming, which tells me that the ethnic studies program wasn't really a positive ethnic studies program. It was probably more CRT than ethnic studies.
Mhm.
And then I'll post things like Florida just created something called their social studies curriculum. They call it a fact based historically accurate studies program where they look at the hard things that happened, of course, during slavery, the treatment of slaves as they crossed the ocean, et cetera, infant mortality rates of slaves on plantations, things like that. But they also look at the good things. They look at heroes and patriots, African heroes and patriots during the Revolutionary War, major contributions to society in the 1800s by African American inventors, contributions by African Americans to American society, American culture. I mean, the, the contributions to American culture by African Americans is, I mean, extraordinary. There's just
Mm-hmm.
no other way to say it. I
Right.
mean, you've, as a group, have done incredible things here, and that is the things that those are the things that we should talk about. Those are the things that we should teach the children. Not
Definitely.
America's the most racist place in the world, and that white kid next to you, yeah, he's a racist too, whether he knows it or not. You know, and I believe that with every inch of my being. I believe that wholeheartedly. And so, but if you want to come out to my Facebook page, anyone has questions, I am more than happy. Please ask.
What's the Facebook
I will
page
talk.
again?
The Facebook page is called Critical Race Theory in Your School, How to Fight Back by Dr. George Maurer.
That's the Facebook page?
That's the Facebook
Okay.
page. And then the title of my book is Critical Race Theory in Your School, How to Fight Back. And like I said, I don't believe in cute titles. I believe in very clear titles. So I made them, the book and the Facebook page have the exact same title, basically.
Okay.
So
Any final thoughts or words?
no, just, thank you so much, Sheila. Sheila, is that your real view from behind you? Or do you have I was going to say, you live in a nice place, man. That is beautiful. I know Pennsylvania has some beautiful
They
country,
do.
that's
They
for
do.
sure.
And that's why
That has some
I am in the
beautiful
country.
country.
I am in the
Okay.
country.
Well, good for you. So, but yeah, Pennsylvania is a beautiful state.
It
So,
is. It
so
is.
yeah,
It is.
I hope you
Well,
enjoy it there.
I want to thank you so much for sharing your stories and your wisdom with us today. To my listeners, I hope you find this episode as engaging and thought provoking as I did. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio. But until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. This is Sheila Dunbar from Sheila's Take. Until next time, remember to embrace the journey, build lasting connections, and step boldly into all that life has in store for you. I'm your host, Sheila Dunbar. Blessings to you.